I like this.
I have no idea.
Okay, if anything, the speech bubble will give away what this is.
Tinkerbell hugging Peter Pan's feet.
Oh.
Peter Pan looks like Morty. Hey y'all, Renegades here, and it has been a hot minute since we have reacted to any Scott the Woz.
Few weeks.
Quite a few weeks, yeah. And honestly, I'm sad that it's taken us this long, but at the same time, it's just like things come up, things happen, and now there's one out that someone recommended to us on our Discord. That's one thing about it. Not a lot of people have recommended them to us on our Discord. Yeah. And we don't really see them that much unless they're on our Discord. Like, we see a few things every now and again in the comment section, stuff that's like, do it now, do it now, do it now. It's like, okay, we get that. And then we look on our Discord, and it's on our Discord too. We're like, all right, this is what people want to see. But Scott the Woz, once again, coming out with a video. And, yeah, this is one I wanted to just say, Scott the Woz is talking about emulation in this video. Now, who do I know that is really into emulation? Oh, you're in it? I was
big fan of emulators.
I was talking about Nick.
Oh, well, yeah, the both of us, I guess.
But, yeah, Chad is really hardcore into emulation. And now that Nintendo has basically done everything they can over the last few years to basically just knock it straight out, I mean, it's annoying as hell to deal with.
It is.
And especially you, I know that you basically have all of the ROMs and stuff that you have saved on like you have redundancy.
Well, I believe in archiving video games and like having them, for long term, because a lot of these physical media items are not built to stand the test of time. CDs crack. They will be dust eventually.
Physical media like that. Like, if anything, if I could like make it out of something that is guaranteed to last tens of thousands of years, I would. I just like the Hall of Fame makes.
But you can't go back. Like, that already happened. Yeah. And unfortunately, discs and cartridges and shit are not meant to last forever.
No.
And they won't.
No.
So shit will be gone if you don't back it up and preserve it. And emulation is a great vehicle for that. And, we could go on and on and on about the reasons why it's not seen that way. But the bottom line is money. And these companies want to re-release and resell every single thing from the beginning of gaming history over and over and over and over again every generation. But it's not fair that we're not able to preserve what we've already paid for.
Yeah. For instance, I've paid for a Nintendo Switch. I paid for various games. And now Nintendo Switch is just like, oh, we have the N64 collection. What is it, $30 for you to play?
Yeah, I can't just push my cartridges into the fucking Switch.
No.
And you know what? A lot of those cartridges are getting to the point where they're not fucking working anymore. Game Boy games and shit, a lot of them are not saving. The batteries are dead.
The pins are going out. The batteries inside are going dead.
But then what? In 30 years from now, then what? Those games are just, you can't even hand them down to fucking, you can't, it's like,
no.
What is going to happen when, certain games aren't re-released?
Yeah.
But you can't play ROMs, you can't play ISO files on emulators because of all this bootleg shit. And it's just like, now that game is completely gone for the mass majority of people. Let's just enjoy watching fucking clips of people playing it on YouTube. Fuck that, man.
Yeah, that's something that I appreciate the fact that Nintendo eventually relented on the Nintendo Creators Program, and they allowed people to stream their video games unrestricted on YouTube. I am thankful for that. But it took them 3 years to relent on that. 3 years, y'all. That, to me, is absolute nonsense.
It's batshit.
Yeah. I don't understand why they have to be that way. Look, I can understand you wanting to protect your IPs. I can understand that. Preserve them. And in all honesty, if you want to release them and stuff, go ahead. But if people have already bought these things, if people have already gotten these things and have these ROMs like and get the ROMs of these video games that they've played before, that they've beaten before, and want to play through again, but yet the copy that they have doesn't work anymore, or the copy that they have is basically just like been sold somewhere along the line or got stolen, the worst case scenario. I mean, that happens, man.
Or in the case of like GameCube games, those little ass fucking discs are fragile as hell, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
plastic eventually breaks.
When it comes to just specifically Nintendo, like that's the worst one for me. That and original Game Boy games like Pokemon Red and Blue. I mean, you got to replace the battery in them now. I mean, they're pretty much
CMOS
all
battery.
dead.
Yeah.
So,
well, the little battery inside that like keeps the memory going.
I mean, if you can't save Pokemon, what's the fucking point in playing it?
And that's the problem I ran into.
And then they didn't release backlit fucking Game Boys in the United States until the fucking Game Boy Advance. What was it? SP, you know?
Yeah, the clamshell one.
There are many, many different reasons why emulation, in my opinion, is really important and needs to be protected at all costs.
Yeah, and honestly, for me, man, there's several things that people have done to preserve ROMs and preserve
they've
games.
risked their freedom and lost it. Several people have lost their freedom due to going to jail over sourcing the fucking ROMs and putting them out there and running web pages so that people can have access to them. And boy, that shit's crazy.
It is.
After somebody's already made millions and millions of dollars for 20 plus years on it.
And here's the thing that I hate about it. Nintendo, if they wanted to, they could do like these collections. They could do these collections and re-release them, but at the same time allow the emulation community to do their thing, because it will keep interest in these video games alive, and young people, seeing these ROMs and seeing people play them on YouTube and like, oh, this is a thing. Well, I don't really want to mess around with emulation, but then all of a sudden they look, Nintendo is re-releasing all these games on this. For instance, I loved the fact that they did the NES and the SNES Classic. I love that they did that. That shows me that they care. But at the same time, the fact that they capped the amount of games that were on it didn't stop people from hacking it and putting infinite amount of games on there, which is what I did with my NES Classic. Still got that one, by the way. But honestly, I just hate that that's the reality of it. And I really wish Nintendo would just get over it and just stop pretending.
Just them. They're not the only ones.
Well, I know, but they're one of the worst.
They're the ones that go on these campaigns to take ROM sites down and shit. It's not Sony. It's not fucking Microsoft. It's not Sega. It is Nintendo.
Nintendo's the one who makes it a crusade.
Yeah.
Nintendo's turned it into a crusade.
Well, NU Paradise was just destroyed by Nintendo.
Yeah. Which was like the most reliable, safest one for the longest time. And again, I really wish Nintendo would just stop and just let the fans do whatever the hell they want. But we all can't have the things that we want. But there's something here that we want. It's a Scott the Woz video talking about emulation. Hey, tied it back around somehow. So we got Scott the Woz here. Let's go ahead and give it a watch. And let's see what happens. Here we go.
Hey y'all, Scott here. Well, I've run out of physical goods to talk about in my apartment. The bank repossessed everything else. Don't worry, I'll figure it out next week. I might slip the bank at 20. So I don't have anything left to talk about outside of who gives a shit, and I got 8 minutes out of that, so I think I'll turn to drugs. Piracy, the gateway drug. I'm playing Mario 3 on my Mac. This time next week, you'll find me in a fucking ditch.
What do you do when you can't buy and or play a game anymore? Give up! It's one of our 2 rights, to buy video games and not to. Well, that's fair enough, but man, I just really want to play Four Swords Adventures, and I don't have a GameCube right now, so maybe just this once.
I also killed a man.
Emulation is often a word in the video game world with dirty connotations associated with it. It's like the word gimmick. That thing was forever ruined by the Wii and Kinect for Xbox 360. Now people think it's a bad thing. Like everything in gaming is a gimmick when you get down to it, and emulation is something that's been seen as immoral, lazy, pretty much everything under the sun. But what is emulation?
Well, to start, immoral and lazy.
So your video game runs on specific hardware. Good for it. An Xbox game is made to run on an Xbox, but what if you want to bring that game to future consoles? consoles. Well, you could port the game, which is taking the game and translating it over to another platform to work there, though that can be a long process. Different systems are different systems, thus they can be incompatible, so getting code made for one game console to run on another, it can be incredibly tricky. There's no getting around that. So sometimes it may be more worthwhile and efficient to use emulation, which emulates specific video game hardware via software on different hardware.
That was the last thing I told my parents before they kicked me out.
Of course, for more complex and
Fair.
newer games, porting is most definitely the superior and often only option. You can fine-tune the game to work perfectly on a new platform, while emulation is more of a quick and dirty jack-of-all-trades solution for older systems. It
There's
takes a
something
while
wrong
to
with it.
figure out how to code a program that makes a game file think it's running on a game console it was meant to work on, which is why emulation is primarily used for games from older consoles, ones that programmers have pretty much completely figured out at this point. If you're bringing old-school NES, Sega Genesis, Atari games to a new platform, these games are so unbelievably simple. Why would you port them? Why would you rebuild them from the ground up? Just use a Sega Genesis emulator. Drag and drop the game files and presto, here's $30 from a fucking idiot. Emulation isn't always perfect. Things can go wrong because each game is created differently. A computer program designed to mimic very specific hardware, well, that's what it's doing. It's mimicking it. It's basically fooling this game file into thinking it's running on a Nintendo 64. So games that use unique effects and push the hardware a decent bit or add something special about them, those are generally outliers. For the longest time, Star Fox, Yoshi's Island, Super Mario RPG, these were SNES games that were really difficult to emulate, and it took a while to perfect SNES emulation to play them properly via this method. While our modern game consoles and computers are more than capable of running games from the Sega Saturn, it comes down to figuring out how to emulate the system properly. Some of these consoles are still incredibly difficult to figure out. Does this look understandable to you? So to wrap up the explanation, how about an analogy?
It's like a mistake.
Emulation is like telling a teenager that grape juice is wine. They might get drunk, it just depends on how stupid they are. Well, then what's the issues with emulation? It seems like a go-to way to experience older games on newer hardware. Well, for one, the purity. This was the main argument I heard growing up. The idea that playing a classic game with an emulator, it doesn't count. If you play a game on anything but...
Scott, you're emulating on a fucking Mac, you idiot. What are you doing? Edit your videos, I get it. The man's gotta make a living, but Jesus fucking Christ. You can't emulate this shit you want to really emulate on a Mac properly? Good God. Anyway.
I was going to say, like, just buy an NVIDIA
What the
Shield.
fuck is he doing? Why don't you try to lose your virginity to a light socket? It'd be easier. What the fuck is wrong with you?
It's because Scott's a Mac head. He can't help himself.
Anyway.
He can't help himself that he's a Mac
Return
head.
of the Mac. Here we are.
Once again.
the original hardware, you didn't really play it. Yeah, the guy saying that also left the bathroom without washing his hands. So something along the lines of playing an NES game on your computer. You're not supposed to use the keyboard for these games. Yet nobody cares if you use a controller for computer games. Let's say something like the Nintendo Switch. If I play Zelda 2 on here, it's not the same experience. You're using a different controller. You're playing the game in a context that the game designers didn't even intend on. You're not playing the game correctly. And hey, I totally get it. Back in the day, I downloaded Super Mario Kart for the SNES on the Wii Virtual Console, and after playing it, I was just like, well, that definitely was the first Mario Kart, alright. I just couldn't see why many still held it in such high regards, though later on, I popped the official cartridge into an actual Super Nintendo and played with an authentic controller, and it clicked. Everything just felt right. The game was meant to be played this way. Because of that, it was way more fun.
The classic
I think
controller.
Playing old school games like that with a modern controller can kind of give me whiplash. Like, it makes me feel like...
Which is why I have the wireless, like, 8-bit DOE ones, dude. The 8-bit DOE, like, playing those on, like, the Switch has it to where you can actually Bluetooth, connect them via Bluetooth. And I love playing, like, classic games with that. With the 8-bit DOE. Dude, that thing is amazing.
Well, the one that the Japanese version one that you hooked me up with, when I started fucking with it on the phone, like, I needed that thing to play, what was it? Secret of Mana?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was beautiful. I'm still halfway. I stopped, but I will finish that game eventually.
Yeah, dude.
But it just it was,
Mana.
I hated using the fucking, PlayStation controller with it.
Yeah.
And the touch screens controls, I don't see how anybody plays shit like that.
Well, yeah. Again, it's just like in the moment.
Yeah.
People playing it in the moment and just like they don't mind like the little on-screen
I lose
thing.
track.
Me, I do too.
Yeah.
I have that problem.
My fingers end up way somewhere else.
Which, oh gosh. Talk about In terms of emulation, I'm okay with that. And, like, if you have the right controller, it can make a big difference. But for me, like I have a SNES, but I also have like all these old games. I went out and I found a copy of Link to the Past and Secret of Mana. I brought those home, and you know who saw them and then plugged them in and played them all the way through?
Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. Like, I was just like sitting there, like editing videos and all that, and I look back and I'm like, oh shit, because I had my headphones on and I was completely like in editing mode, and then I turned around and Nick is just like going to town with the SNES, and I'm just like, hey man, what's up? And he's just like, you didn't tell me you got Link to the Past, man. I'm just like, I see
Now
that,
you know.
I see that didn't stop you from playing it.
Yeah.
And he's just like, of course I'm gonna fucking play it. It's fucking Link to the Past.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, did you say I had Secret of Mana as well? And he's just like, do I know? and he as soon as he was done with Link to the Past, he popped in Secret of Mana. He beat both of them in it's unbelievable how fast he is with like classic games like that, dude. It's
savage.
He is a savage. Nick is a friggin' monster when it comes to certain games, which is why I'm surprised he doesn't stream all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Because he's a beast.
I could be playing Mario Kart 8 on this thing right now, and instead I'm playing this piece of shit. Playing on the original hardware helps in understanding what the game is trying to achieve. It allows you to immerse yourself in the context of playing the game as it was intended. That's not to say I can't enjoy old games on new platforms. Far from it. I prefer it. It's so much more convenient. It's just playing with the actual cartridge and system and controller. It just feels right. Playing an NES game on Switch makes me ask, what the hell am I doing with my life? Playing an NES game
I remember
on
that
actual
game.
NES with an original controller, it feels like you're appreciating history. It's like listening
Which
to
is
the
why,
vinyl.
you know, you
Sure,
go
it's more
between.
effort
You
to do
play
it
on a
that
new
way,
system with an old
but
controller.
it feels so much more genuine. However, emulation does have a ton of benefits. One being video output. It can look a million times better than most conventional ways of playing on the original system.
That's
Yes,
true.
I do like to see the game. Pixel perfect visuals. It's so crisp now. This is horrible for Atari. You ever play any of these Atari compilations when they're in crystal clear HD and it just makes you realize how stupid you feel while playing these games? Guess what
I
I'm
was
playing with
never
an
into the
Xbox
Atari.
controller.
I played the Atari a little bit, but
I've tried it
But-
back in the day, but I was just like, what the
but
fuck
the
is this?
NES was, my grandparents owned an NES. That shows you like just how much my grandparents, like, who were like completely like technically out the door. You want to know the interesting thing? The back of the TV that it was plugged into did not have a coaxial cable input.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have that. Instead, what it had was an antenna, plug in for like the little hookups. It was two prongs you'd put in, and you'd screw them in, and then you'd hook an antenna up to it. What we had to do for the NES was they had to get the specific adapter for satellite, not satellite, but for antenna input, and get that plugged in and hooked up and all that. And then you got good video, and then you got decent. I shouldn't say good, decent video signal. The best way to get best video signal is either S-Video or RCA. Like, which if you're able to get, composite, get one of those NESs that has the 3-prong output, the yellow, the red, and the white. Oh,
I still have a TV that has that.
Oh yeah,
And I have the one that has the S-Video as well. The Dreamcast has that.
Well,
so-
that's actually the big TV we have out there. Remember the
Yep.
big Toshiba we got?
Exactly.
Yeah, and honestly, I love that thing.
Yeah.
It's big and it's chunky, but it's a big TV that's got some great picture. Anyway,
Why, yes, I'm fucking stupid. These games can run on milk jugs. There's no reason why they shouldn't be available on modern consoles, though I still think they work best hooked up to an old TV with a fuzzy picture. Like, come on, this doesn't look right. Some games just work best with limitations like that. When you're given all the options in the world to make Super Breakout your own, it almost kind of ruins the fun in that game. And that's how many people feel about the added bonus features that come with many emulators. Save stage. You
Final
can save
Fight.
and resume wherever you want
Or
in the
Fatal
game.
Fury.
You don't have to wait for a moment in the title itself. It's a system-wide feature. Just save and the emulator holds your place and you can pick up exactly where you left off. And some consider this cheating. I consider it an open relationship. Here's the thing. Do you really think most of the developers chose not to include save files in their games? Or do you really think they knew back then what an adequate amount of save points would be if they did did have save files. I
Oh,
think this is mainly an argument from retro gamers who feel games have gotten too easy these days, but does that easiness stem from being able to save? It's more of just something that deserves to be there. Like, imagine a DVD player without a pause button because you couldn't pause the movie in the theater. So the fact these emulators include saving options, that's not right. You gotta play through the game as it was intended. Are you guys really acting like you never got help playing games in the 80s and 90s? Are you really acting like you didn't look at maps and guides in Nintendo Power, or acting like you didn't get help from friends on the schoolyard, or use Game Genie to mess around with the game?
I remember my cousin Josh had one of those, and we messed around with it.
Well, Nick gave me a Game Genie.
I remember that, yeah. Dude.
Save state's good for you, but who the hell cares? They're nothing but a good option to have, though I think the main argument is about abusing them. You can save your game right before a super tough part and just keep reloading that save point until you get it right. Hey, to be fair, if you abuse save states and use them constantly, chances are you're gonna save state yourself into a corner. Like, you save at a part where 1 billion projectiles are already on their way to you, and once you load at the save point, bam!
You're dead.
Oh, I am scum.
I find myself using save states not because I can't do what the game is asking me to. I just don't want to put up with its garbage. I don't want to waste time playing through a bunch of levels I've already been without save states all over again just to get to one part of the game I have trouble with. Hey, that's a part of the game design if you have to replay levels, but in many of these cases, I'm not trying to beat the game for a sense of accomplishment. I just want to beat it to experience it. So I think save states are fine if used in moderation. Rewinding is for bitches. Another staple of emulators is the rewind functionality, being able to rewind from wherever you are to wherever you were. Who would use this? Bitches. This is pretty much the easy to use save state, and was born out of the fact a lot of these retro games are just unfair. Yeah, try saying that in court. Hey, I 100% think this is being a bit cheap sometimes, but my god, it's so hard to ignore. I'll play a game for a while before using it, but then there's that one portion where I'm just like, okay, I beat everything up to this point. I can obviously do it. It's just, let me use it to get past this. And then I proceed to use it for the rest of the game. It's so evil, but it's such a nice quality of life improvement. Ah! What about the fast forward feature? The Sega Genesis Classics collection has that. Helps me die way sooner. You can consistently change filters and change how the game looks with emulation. Some people like the
helps
pixels
me
all
die way
smoothed out.
sooner. That's funny.
Some things like the pixels all smoothed out. Oh, look at that, a CRT filter, making it look like it's on an old TV.
I did
understand
not
the
know
value
that
in
existed.
something
Yes,
like this.
yes.
It's got the monitors are what these games
Now
are
that
designed
is
for,
evil.
though. Filters like this feel very patronizing to me. Like, what do you think, I'm a fucking idiot? No, I
Yeah.
need the pixel smooth, stretched widescreen, mirrored image, TV projection, plus a CRT filter. Can you tell I have standards? Button mapping. You can change where the buttons are. I think this is a feature that should be standard on literally everything. Like, why do I have to hit the A button for this? Why not the X button? Why not the L button, for Christ's sake? Sure, some games are fully designed around where the button is. I remember Heavy Rain. Where
Yeah,
that stressful situations where you had to carefully move between dangerous objects. You'd have to hold multiple buttons in awkward places, which really immersed me. All right, that's enough sucking Heavy Rain off. Some button placements just don't work for people.
According to David Cage, no. He wants people to talk about his games. It's just like, game overs are the fault of the developer.
Especially when you're emulating a game from a different console. That controller may
I
not
can
be up
almost
to
hear
snuff.
the hypocritical
so being
shit
able to
leaving
change
his
that,
lips.
I think is important. Sure, many of these additions may make the game feel less and less as it originally did, but is that really a bad thing? More often than not, most emulation efforts give you solutions to play the game nearly just as it was always intended, if not entirely. If you don't want to play with save states, rewind features, widescreen, any of that, you don't have to! But these features can only really help the games. Many times emulators can in fact reduce slowdown, increase frame rate, enable 16:9 so you can see what the hell is going on here. And of course that raises questions. Slowdown stinks, but that was how the game was made. If you take the slowdown out of Sonic 2, is it still Sonic 2? Might be a dumb question, but what about for stuff like speedruns, competitions? Using these enhanced versions should always be specified. But at what point do these additive enhancements become too much? The benefits...
Well, I mean, you want to ask, you should ask Billy Mitchell that, because, yeah, the King of Kong,
Speaking of enhanced
fucking
games,
ass. Yeah. Steve Wiebe was the man, dude. Yeah, first guy ever to hit 1 million, and then all of a sudden Billy's just like, actually, I did it a week before. On this one, here's a videotape that cannot be verified by anybody. So, yeah, just take my word for it. And I'm like...
Worked.
It did, but then eventually he got found out for being a freaking liar because he found out that he used a MAME cabinet, which I want to build a MAME cabinet, and I want to install a bunch of stuff.
It's been a dream for a long time.
Yeah, and I think we can do it.
I think we can do it.
I think we can, but one day.
It's alive!
One day.
I will scream that from the top of my lungs.
It's alive! It's alive! Weird science. Sorry.
Bras on our heads.
The
braziers are here.
Like, why are we wearing bras on our heads? It's a ceremony, Wyatt.
It's a ceremony.
Emulators they would have been enough to make this version of a game its own separate game back then. Bottom line, emulation seems pretty simple, but the more you go down it, there's hundreds upon hundreds of questions that have yet to get definitive answers. And a lot of it is completely down to your own individual opinion. Like, I think Nintendo 64 games in widescreen look disgusting. I don't like them, but do I care that other people do and they only ever want to play Nintendo 64 games like this? No. But so many people do.
Scott,
it's like they get really mad if somebody says they beat Mega Man 2, but on an emulator they go, no, I beat Mega Man 2! What, do NBA fans get pissed off when they see somebody play on the playground? Who cares? Play games the way you want to play games. And if that means playing via emulation on your fancy new controller with save states, or if that means playing on the original hardware, so be it. There's nothing wrong.
I'm still in prison, aren't I?
Yes, one of the biggest problems with emulation is the legality of it. Now, the stuff I've been referring to up to this point have all been mostly relegated to official emulation, games officially made available by the legal copyright owners on video game hardware. Nintendo's Virtual Console, or NES, SNES, Nintendo 64 Switch Online services, Sega's various Genesis collections, Sony's PlayStation 1 games on PS3 and Vita, and all the other collections and re-releases. The mini consoles like the NES and SNES Classic Edition, PlayStation Classic, Sega Genesis Mini, they all use emulation to provide you with an experience as close to the original games as possible, mostly. But that's not even half the story with emulation, as most of it occurs on my worst fucking nightmare. Some of it happens on Mac. What are you talking about?
No!
See, even he went through it.
I mean, Jesus Christ, that shit happens using iMovie, so... You know?
Well, here's the thing I will say. The new M1 Macs don't have that problem.
Thank God. They definitely shafted me until I can't fucking hear myself fart.
And that's the thing. I mean, if you want to get a new Mac, the new Mac Pro and the Mac M1 Pro and M1 X, or Max, dude, those things are freaking wicked. I'm probably... It's going to be blasphemy, so for those of you of the PC, you know, master race out there, in Gabe and we trust. Cover your ears. I'm thinking about buying an M1 Mac.
I like using Mac programs to edit videos and record and shit like that. But let me tell you, dude, when you have problems, and you will, they come out of fucking thin air.
Mm-hmm. Which
is the most infuriating shit of all time. It's not even like... You know, you'll be on your PC and shit, you'll be like playing a game that's like really pushing it while you're streaming it, and you've got another video playing music over here, and there's 3 cameras plugged in. It's like, oh, click. What the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, you're doing nothing. Doing literally nothing. Oh, YouTube. Nice. Cool video. You just crashed over that?
Mac has ran into an error, and
because I'm using Chrome instead of Safari.
Apparently, which Chrome is infamous for gobbling up resources, which is why I've actually switched over to Opera in a lot of cases.
Well, Mac is notorious for being, or Apple's notorious for being like, that's not ours.
Yeah, they are pretty bad about that, which is why, you know, again, that's why a lot of people build Hackintoshes. Which, okay, so let's go ahead.
That's emulation, right?
Yes, it is, technically.
On my worst fucking nightmare.
That's actually a pretty decent PC, Scott. If someone offered that to me, I'd take it.
Some of it happens on Mac. What are you talking about? All those emulator features that I discussed, It's completely up in the air if they appear on official video game consoles, and most of the time, they don't. You're lucky if you get a CRT filter. Emulators on PC are decades ahead and have been for a while. You can truly do anything with them. Play fan games, ROM hacks, use custom save files to get farther in the game without playing. You can toggle between dozens of options on the fly. Plus, having choices. You can pick and choose what emulator for what system you want to use, and you can play any way you want. Games are games. Everybody has their own rules for Monopoly. Why can't Super Mario Bros. 3 be the same? I own this game. I should be able to do whatever I want with
Yes,
it. If I want
thank
the
you.
frog
100%.
suit in World 1-1, that's my own business. It's so frustrating with many official releases that they don't give you the options fan emulators give. Super Mario 3D All-Stars included emulated versions of Super Mario 64 and Sunshine. Sunshine was put in 16:9 widescreen, while 64 was still 4:3, which I still don't understand. Yes, I don't like Nintendo 64 games in widescreen, but even I don't get this. It's more than possible. Fans have been doing this for years. Just the option would have been cool. It's all about control. Nintendo wants their experiences on their platforms to be a certain way. It seems like they want playing a Nintendo system to be like walking into Disneyland. Like, you've entered the world of Nintendo.
Which is strange now that they've actually opened a Nintendo land in Japan.
I want to go so badly.
Oh, me too, bro. I want to dress up as Luigi and just show up there and just be like, ho, we are going to have some fun, Mario.
Do you notice what this is on?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, no. I guarantee you he, like, had someone do this. Because I don't think he owns a PC. I don't think Scott owns a PC, really.
There, but it's in his video. There
It
you
is.
have it.
No, he admits it. He admits that, like, on PC it is miles ahead.
Oh, yeah.
In which he's on the SNES 9X.
It's the one I use.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
You want to toggle off bilinear filters? They don't want that. We're lucky we're at the point we are with them. Emulators themselves on PC aren't illegal, but they're pretty much worthless unless you have game ROM files to play on them, and the only way to do that is to serve 6 to 7 years. This is the main crutch of PC emulation. Obtaining the games to play, yeah, by all means do it. I'm sure the court would love to hear your story. Piracy, that's the main argument. You're downloading game files illegally to play on your computer. Well, what if I own a legal copy of the game? Then can I do it? Nope! These are two separate copies. Owning one hose reel doesn't give you the legal right to steal another. However, who the hell cares? Most of these games aren't being sold anymore. There's no official way to buy them. The only method is getting a copy secondhand on eBay, and that's not going to any of the original copyright holders.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly tricky thing to figure out. So much of this is an illegal gray area, or is in a specifically illegal area, but you're not hurting any profits or anybody or anything by dabbling in it, or is in a legal area, but you can't do anything with it. Sure, you can get an emulator, but playing games on it, no thank you. But these emulators, man, even if you can play a legal copy of a game on a legal system easily, emulators like Dolphin can give you GameCube and Wii games in far greater resolutions with new control options, better frame rates. It's
Actually, Marcel, and basically I did work. He got a group of people together and played Double Dash online through the Dolphin emulator. Yeah,
That is so cool.
we need to try that sometime.
Oh, that would be so sick.
The only problem is the online features are a bit buggy, but they're working it out.
We still
very
need to do
slowly.
Skyrim together
Yes, we do.
because evidently it's gotten a lot better.
Oh, dude, like co-op Skyrim. That's the shit.
Yeah.
It's difficult to look at this compared to the official, completely legal method and really consider this better.
However, we need to make things clear. Emulation on PC can be a nightmare. You know how much work it took me to play the Wii version of Sonic Colors on the PC? Enough to say, F you, I'll buy Sonic Colors Ultimate instead. The amount of work required to get a lot of this running is ridiculous. Even the easiest ones, the types of websites you have to go on to download ROMs, are the ones my mom always warned me about. Half the time, the emulator doesn't work and you don't know why, and if anything, it just goes to show that putting out simply emulated versions of old games on consoles officially, it still takes a lot of work. And while fan emulation can be outstanding, at the end of the day, I'd rather just officially purchase the games on the consoles when they become available by the copyright holders, because, frankly, I'm too lazy and stupid to break the law.
And it makes it all worse that companies like Nintendo are so hell-bent on putting a stop to anything of this nature. But you know what? They have the right to do so. They don't want their games to be pirated. But if they don't want that, all for your damn games on your system. Nintendo.
I agree. Please, for the love of God, you have your entire library. Just right there, sitting there. Why?
Re-releases their game.
Hell, for the N64, you know what you can do? You can release an official Nintendo N64 controller.
Hold on. They could release an N64 Mini that literally has every single 64 game on it, and I don't know, 64 gigabytes, would be way big enough to handle that.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, literally entire library.
Keep in mind, dude, the N64, the max cartridge size was 64 megabytes.
Right.
And that's you could fit 1,000 games if every single one, but those were expensive ones. Those were not highly used. Most of them were 16 or 32.
Yeah.
And you could fit 1,000 to 2,000 games on this thing with 64 gigabit. Hell, you could say 64 gigabits of storage that has all N64 games on it.
And you could sell that motherfucker for $80 and people would buy it. You could
Hell,
sell it for $100 and people would buy it all day
I'd
long.
buy it for $100. The entire N64 library, part of my childhood, for $100. Buy it in spades. And also, you can make even more money by doing the wireless N64 controller, like what 8-Bit Do has.
Online access to play games online.
Yes!
Mario Kart 64.
Yes!
And, just tons of shit, man. Like Pokemon Stadium online. That would be fucking insane.
Dude, that'd be the shit.
Play those fucking mini games online.
Oh.
I mean, but I thought that lots of things would never happen, like the new Pokemon game that's coming out next year, but I highly doubt that they would ever do anything that wild.
I don't know, man.
Then again, it is Nintendo. You never know what the fuck they're going to do.
All the time, but they're mostly the same things over and over again. What about the games that never get a re-release? The Virtual Boy catalog, or even more so, the Satellaview games. Games broadcasted the add-on for the Super Famicom in Japan only. These games were only available for a certain amount of time, have never been re-released, and are preserved online through emulation. And that's something emulation does, and it does well. Preservation. And
yes!
against emulation has hurt it significantly. Whether it's because the idea of emulation isn't the true experience, that if you emulate games, you're not truly playing them, or the legal battles against them, or just the fact that if an official video game re-release uses emulation, it's somewhat frowned upon, it doesn't matter. Emulation has a weird stigma. When I hear that a re-release was emulated, it usually is considered just emulation, like it's a bad thing. Oh no, this collection of games was merely emulated. They weren't ported natively to the platform. You do realize nobody notices most of the time? I gladly welcome more effort, but sometimes emulation works perfectly. There's no need to go further than that. And complaining about it is just another excuse to complain about some games. No, they just emulated it. Well, that's not always a bad thing. Some remasters or remakes of games, I'd honestly prefer it if they just re-released an emulated version of the original. That way I know exactly what I'm getting. Emulation can be bad sometimes, 100%. There's kind of a one-size-fits-all mentality with it. Emulating a console, one game may work great for it, others may not. But like I said, even bad emulation, most of the time people don't notice. Sonic Jam on the Sega Saturn rebuilt the original Genesis games from the ground up. They fixed slowdown and improved the games here and there, but they primarily felt the exact same. Sonic Mega Collection used emulated versions. Most people never noticed, I'm telling you now. Still doesn't stop Sega from constantly putting effort into finding new ways to re-release Sonic 1. Am I the only one that gets kind of pissed off at the amount of man-hours put into re-releasing this game? Oh, the Sega Ages version of Sonic 1 is so much better than the version in the Sega Genesis Classics collection. It's the same damn game. I normally prefer my games pretty stock. I don't like to mess with the visuals or controls too much, but that doesn't mean I think the option shouldn't be there for those who don't want that. And while I prefer to play games on console,
Hadouken!
Superior option
every time I played against people in that game, that's all they would do. Hadouken!
This is supposed to help gaming, help more people experience
it makes me want to literally
help people play games the way they want
pull
to
someone's teeth
and
out.
Companies going after
with
stuff
that no
like
anesthesia,
frowning upon official releases using emulation when it's completely warranted to use it. it just keeps retro gaming way more inaccessible than it needs to be. Plus, who the hell actually went to jail over downloading a ROM? At the end of the day, just do what you want.
Gotcha.
Damn it. Scott says as he exits with a gun in hand.
Oh my God, Bikini Zombie Slayers. I have that game for Xbox 360.
Scott did a full video, or 8-minute video in it.
Metal Jesus did it, brought it up in a Hidden Gems video.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Nikki saw it and was like, what the fuck is this?
It's a joke.
I'm just like, this.
It's a joke game. Check it out. God. So, all right. Eek, emulation. So, Scott, dropping a little bit of truth on that, but also at the same time, Scott, I mean, PC, like, you're a person who is, like, completely, like, delved into the PC realm of PC, or of, like, emulation. I remember, dude, you and me, while we were driving back from Lee County, you had a little Acer laptop. You remember the little pocket books?
Yeah.
And I remember you had Mario Tennis on there, and you were playing it while I was driving you back to your home up in Wise. And I was like, dude, what the hell is that? And he's just like, yours like Mario Tennis? I'm like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah, the Game Boy Mario Tennis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And dude, like, emulation is
this is where a lot of my emulation takes place.
Yeah.
This motherfucker might as well be a PSP.
May as well, yeah.
I mean, or a DS. Dolphins on here.
Yeah.
I've got Wii Resort working on it before.
God,
which I own, by the way, Nintendo.
Yeah.
But I agree 100% with the preservation part.
Yes, 100%.
And for me, that is all that is important for me in this shit. If they were just like, all right, we understand it, we're going to do something about this, we'll fix it, I would be willing to be like, all right, fine.
Yeah, cool.
I'm not going to fuck with it anymore. That's fine. But that's just not going to happen. It's just...
No.
You would think that they would have better things to do than worry about games that they put out 20 years ago.
You'd think. But no, instead, this game was released 20 years ago, and someone's wanting to play it on an emulation site.
Look, knock on wood, I'm sure it's in there somewhere in this material. Nintendo are the only ones who give a fuck.
Really?
They really are the only ones who give a shit.
Yeah.
Nobody else has done a goddamn thing about it. Unless you're downloading games that are like very new, that are still on the market. All companies will come after you over that.
Well, yeah.
But if you're working from shit like literally the Xbox 360 back, people other than Nintendo don't seem to give a flying fuck about it.
Well, no. I mean, in some ways, like, I've heard some old school game developers, I believe, have said that they approve of emulation past a certain point, past the shelf life of a certain game. Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. Like, if something is re-released brand new, for instance, Scott did a video where he covered, what is a remake, what is a remaster, what is But for instance, I can understand, like, Sony be like, oh, we have the Resident Evil, Capcom. Capcom would be like, oh, we have the Resident Evil remake that was originally on Nintendo GameCube. It was a big hit and everything, and then it's like, oh, we're gonna remaster it for all these other things. It's like, oh, but these other emulation sites out there, they've got it here. It's like, oh, but it's not remastered the way we can do it, where we upgrade the graphics to like HD, full HD, and we redo all the assets and everything. Same thing with again, if a company is willing to go through it and they see it's like, oh, this is a very heavily emulated game. Tell you what, let's go on this. Let's see how we can improve this and then re-release it. Fix the controls, which is one thing that Shadow of the Colossus did that I'm glad. Because Shadow of the Colossus, when it came out in 2005, loved it. I thought it was amazing. Playing it on PlayStation 2 is one of my favorite memories of that console. But that game got emulated and everything. So yeah, everyone was just like, oh, it's a great, the emulation's good and everything. But then Bluepoint said, oh, we're gonna remaster the original game and we're going to adapt the controls to work more on the PlayStation 4. I'm sitting there like, huh, okay, so are y'all gonna fix like the wonky controls and all that? They did. They fixed mostly everything. It's one of the best remasters out there, and it's a remaster. That's the thing. You see in games like Resident Evil 2, where they completely changed up the gameplay loop. No longer tank controls. Instead, it's the controls that's from like Resident Evil 4, and it's great.
Yeah.
But again, if it's more modern stuff, they will come after you. I mean, heck, there's actually some pretty inventive ways that they've been able to, catch pirates, and they've actually shown that people who do pirate the game eventually do buy it.
Yeah.
That's one of the most amazingly groundbreaking things that they found out. It's like oh, pirates, they won't buy it. They're just gonna. But then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, so it shows here that actually most of the people who pirate the game do actually buy it. Huh.
Interesting.
Okay. But instead of being that way, they're just like, nope, everyone, no one gets anything.
Well, there's also this. I have all respect for Microsoft and Xbox. Like, you hooking me up with the Series X was huge for me because it had the disc drive, right? So I can play games that I've had forever on there. And I really like that. I can take the game, put it in my system, and play it. For Nintendo, that PC is the only thing that I can upgrade, get a brand new one, and use that same ROM in it on the same emulator and play it. I could have done that from that Acer, the same ROM, all the way to the PC that we had built. The fucking utility of that is so. I mean, if there were like downloadable ROMs or whatever that you could buy from companies that didn't have to be played on their systems of these old games, that maybe would be a decent compromise as well. Like, don't sell them, in a way that they can only be played on the Switch or whatever if you're not re-releasing them, but have a marketplace where we can download the fucking ROMs.
Yeah.
From the people who own them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I could support that.
Yeah.
I could definitely support that. Well, who knows what the future holds out there, ladies and gentlemen.
Not us.
I guess we'll have to see. But that's going to do it, everyone. This was Scott the Wasp Emulation. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and hopefully we will see you all in the next one. So I guess until then, I'm Nate.
I'm Chad.
We'll see you. Peace out.